According to early reports, Key Glock was gunned down in South Memphis after multiple shots were fired. The streets immediately started pointing fingers, saying this was no random act. Whoever did it appeared to know his routines, his neighborhood ties, and exactly where to find the last major face of Paper Route Empire. People are already connecting this attack to the same forces long believed to be behind young Dolph's killing, the same alleged $100,000 hit discussed in open court, and the same CMG versus PRE war that has haunted Memphis since 2014. Glock had spoken before about how nobody can outrun fate, and even after Dolph's death, he stayed in South Memphis and kept his cousin's name alive. But this story did not begin overnight. It started a decade ago with one rejected handshake. Key Glock, born Markevius LaShawn Cathy, was more than a rapper. He was a symbol. After young Dolph was killed in November 2021, when two gunmen stepped out of a stolen white Mercedes-Benz outside Makeda's homemade butter cookies and fired 22 shots into one of Memphis's most respected artists, Key Glock became the heartbeat of Paper Route Empire. He was the last major figure standing, the one expected to carry the movement forward, protect the legacy, and keep the label alive, and someone out there clearly did not want that to happen. This is the full story. We're starting at the beginning. We're going back to the roots, because to understand why Key Glock was targeted, you have to understand the conflict that was already in motion long before fame entered the picture. You have to understand Memphis. You have to understand what PR versus CMG represents. You have to see what happens when street politics and rap music collide, and neither side is willing to back down. Sit with this for a minute, because it's heavy. Let's go back to South Memphis. Not the version that shows up on album covers or in lyrics as a stylish backdrop, but the real South Memphis. The one where Key Glock grew up without his mother after she received a 15-year sentence when he was only 16 months old. 16 months! Still a baby when she went away. His father drifted in and out, never fully present the way a young boy needs. So Glock was raised by his grandmother. He learned street lessons before classroom lessons. He watched people around him fall before he ever figured out who he wanted to become. In high school, he and his friends formed a crew called Whole Lotta Erdang, a Memphis phrase that meant they were outside, active, and involved in everything. But the streets have a way of taking from you, no matter how strong you think your circle is. One of his closest friends from that crew was shot and killed at just 16 years old. 16. And Glock, who wasn't even 21 yet, later said he had already witnessed and experienced more than most people do in an entire lifetime. That kind of pain will either destroy you or shape you. For Markevius Cathy, it pushed him deeper into music. Now this is where the family tie becomes important, because it matters to the whole story. Young Dolph, born Adolph Robert Thornton Jr., was Key Glock's cousin by marriage. They connected at family gatherings and knew each other in that close South Memphis way where relatives and neighborhood ties blend together. As Dolph's career began to rise and he built Paper Route Empire into something real, something Memphis could proudly claim, he recognized that same hunger and drive in Glock. In 2015, Glock picked up an aggravated robbery charge and served about 90 days. When he came home, Dolph and his business manager, Daddy O, reached out to him with a clear message. Come be part of what we're building. Join PRE. For a young man from South Memphis with his mother incarcerated and a fallen friend heavy on his mind, that opportunity meant everything. In 2017, Glock Season dropped. 12 tracks, no major features except a cameo from PRE's own Jay Fizzle. It was straight Memphis energy, and it got people's attention. Then came Glaucoma, Glock Bond, and Son of a Gun. In 2019, Glock and Dolph released Dumb and Dumber together. 22 tracks with a Beavis and Butthead-inspired cover, and it debuted at number 8 on the Billboard 200. They followed it with Dumb and Dumber 2 in 2021, which became the 5th largest streaming debut on Spotify that weekend. They were leading Memphis rap. Yellow Tape arrived in 2020, and then Yellow Tape 2 in November 2021. Key Glock was rising fast. Ambition for Cash went multi-platinum. He was building something that looked generational. Then November 17th, 2021 happened and everything shifted. Listen closely here, because young Dolph's murder and everything that followed, including what happened to Key Glock, didn't begin in 2021. The roots trace back to 2014, and it all started with a rejected handshake. Yo Gotti, born Mario Mims, is a Memphis rap veteran who, alongside 3 6 Mafia, helped put the city on the national map. His label, Collective Music Group, widely known as CMG, was his empire. In 2014, Yo Gotti reportedly approached a rising Memphis rapper named Young Dolph and offered to join the CMG roster and operate under that banner. Dolph declined. That refusal is widely viewed as a spark that ignited everything that followed. Dolph made it clear he didn't want to attach himself to another man's movement. He wanted to build his own brand and remain independent. From a business standpoint, that choice proved powerful. He would later turn down a reported $22 million record deal to keep ownership of his masters and his freedom. But in Memphis, decisions like that can carry weight beyond business. What started as competitive tension allegedly evolved into deeper street politics that, over time, turned deadly. At first it was subtle, indirect tweets, coded lyrics, and quiet jabs. Then in 2016, Dolph announced his debut album would be titled King of Memphis. In a city where Yo Gotti was widely considered the established king, that title alone was seen as a statement. CMG artist Black Youngsta, whom Gotti had signed in 2015 after failing to secure Dolph, went on Instagram in March 2016, calling Dolph out publicly and telling him to address any issues directly. The lines were being drawn. In February 2017, Dolph released Play With Yo, be asterisk 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 asterisk, and the video featured a Yo Gotti lookalike in a fur coat being mocked, a clear message that Dolph wasn't backing down. 3 days later, more than 100 rounds were fired into Dolph's SUV in Charlotte, North Carolina. Over 100 shots. The vehicle was armored, something Dolph reportedly used because he understood the risks around him. And he survived. But that wasn't a warning. That was an attempted execution that failed. Black Youngsta later turned himself in for questioning in connection to the shooting, but no charges ultimately held. He walked away. But 7 months later, in September 2017, young Dolph was shot outside a retail store in Hollywood. 3 men approached him and opened fire, hitting him multiple times and leaving him in critical condition. LAPD later arrested a known associate connected to Yo Gotti named Corey McClendon on suspicion of attempted murder, but McClendon was eventually released without any formal charges, and Gotti himself was never publicly listed as a suspect. Dolph survived once again, but the streets already understood the message loud and clear. There was money on young Dolph's head, and somebody was determined to keep paying until the mission was finished. For the next few years, everything looked calmer on the surface. Dolph stayed focused on his music, his businesses, and most importantly, his family. He and his longtime partner Mia J were raising their children, while Dolph continued giving back to the city of Memphis through turkey drives, school supply giveaways, and community events. He wanted to prove that somebody could come from nothing and still stand for something meaningful. Meanwhile, CMG kept growing, and Gotti expanded his empire with artists like Moneybagg Yo and Glorilla. To the public, it seemed like the war between the two sides had finally faded away. But the truth was different. The tension never disappeared. It simply moved in silence beneath the surface. Then came November 17, 2021, in Memphis. Young Dolph had returned home during the holiday season to organize his annual Thanksgiving turkey giveaway to the Ida Mae Family Foundation. Just like always, he was giving back to his community. That afternoon, Dolph stopped at Makeda's Homemade Butter Cookies on Airways Boulevard, a place he visited regularly and a location everybody in the city knew he loved. That detail alone sends chills down your spine. Everybody knew he went there. At some point that afternoon, a stolen white Mercedes-Benz pulled into the parking lot outside the cookie shop. 2 armed men stepped out, walked straight toward the storefront, and opened fire on young Dolph. More than 20 shots rang out. Dolph was struck 22 times and died at the scene. He was only 36 years old. By the time investigators reviewed the surveillance footage and issued alerts for the suspects, the shooters had already disappeared. But the investigation that followed would eventually expose the entire war between Piari and CMG for the whole world to witness. On January 5th, 2022, authorities identified the first suspect as 23-year-old Justin Johnson, a rapper known as Straight Drop. Shortly after, 32-year-old Cornelius Smith was arrested in connection with the vehicle used in the shooting. Johnson was later captured in Indiana after more than 500 tips were submitted to investigators. Both men were charged with first-degree murder. In November 2022, a third individual, 45-year-old Hernandez Govan, was indicted. Prosecutors allege that Govan helped organize the attack. During trial proceedings, Shelby County Deputy District Attorney Paul Hagerman outlined the state's theory in opening statements, alleging that Anthony Big Juke Mims, Yo Gotti's brother, and someone said to play a behind-the-scenes role at CMG, placed a $100,000 bounty on young Dolph. Prosecutors further allege that Govan, described in court as someone who connected aspiring artists with CMG opportunities, recruited Johnson and Smith to carry out the killing, and that Johnson was promised both money and a potential record deal in exchange. In September 2024, Justin Johnson was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison. Cornelius Smith, who admitted involvement and testified, is still awaiting his own sentencing. Hernandez Govan went to trial in 2025 and was acquitted. Although the jury cleared him, testimony presented in court reinforced what many in Memphis had believed since Dolph's death, that this was not random violence, but targeted killing tied to a long-running conflict between Paper Route Empire and Collective Music Group. Now, let's focus on the man at the center of the story. After young Dolph was killed, Key Glock instantly became both the most important and the most exposed figure in Memphis rap. He was at home when he received the news. Later, he described that moment. The kind of phone call where you can hear something is wrong in a person's voice before they even say the words. That shift in tone when someone says your name and you already know it's bad. That's how Glock explained finding out his cousin and mentor was gone. In a since-deleted Instagram post, he wrote, "Damn, bro, I'm lost. My heart is torn. My brain is about to explode. It hurts when I breathe. Why did you leave me so soon? I'll never be the same. You were my right hand, my brother, my cousin, my mentor, my drinking partner." That same month, he got a tattoo in Dolph's honor. Then he went quiet. He stepped away from social media, out of the public eye, and focused on grieving. In April 2022, he finally spoke in an interview with Complex, saying he was maintaining not better, not worse, just living in a numb space that didn't fade. He admitted he couldn't shake the pain and didn't know if he ever would. But here's what set Glock apart. He didn't fall apart, and he didn't run. He stayed in Memphis. He carried Paper Route Empire on his shoulders and kept moving forward. On November 17, 2022, exactly 1 year after Dolph's death, he released a 5-track EP titled PRE5L, not because he was fully healed, but because the movement had to continue, because that's what Dolph would have expected. Then in February 2023, he dropped Glaucoma 2, his first full studio album since losing Dolph. The project featured 15 tracks with production from Bandplay, Tay Keith, and Hit Kid. The emotion throughout the album was undeniable. On Dirt, he rapped about Dolph directly. Number 1 rule, get that money, man, I got this from Dolph. On Work, he spoke about still hearing Dolph's voice in his head, pushing him forward. Those weren't just lyrics. That was grief translated into music, the only language he fully trusted. The album included the sleeper hit Let's Go, marking his second appearance on the Billboard Hot 100. It proved that even through pain, Key Glock remained one of the strongest voices coming out of Memphis. The culture was paying attention, and the numbers backed it up. Then on March 13, 2025, Key Glock signed with Republic Records, a major label move and the first time a Paper Route Empire artist stepped into that lane. Despite Dolph building the brand on independence, on May 2nd, 2025, after multiple delays, he released Glockavelli, his 4th studio album and major label debut, inspired by Tupac's Machiavelli persona, a reference to someone who understood that street life and music often reflect the same battles on different stages. Glock was building towards something bigger. He was rising, which is why what happened next feels shocking on the surface and understandable once you look at Memphis. Here's the reality. Key Glock, born and raised in South Memphis, never relocated. Even as the money increased, the plaques stacked up, and the major label deal came through, he stayed home. That was his identity. South Memphis made him, and he continued to represent it, regardless of industry pressure. But that same loyalty kept him accessible. And the shooting took place in South Memphis, the same neighborhoods that shaped both him and young Dolph, the same zip codes where tension between CMG and PRE has never fully cooled off. Multiple rounds were fired. This didn't appear to be a robbery gone wrong, or a random argument that escalated. The timing, the location, and the way it unfolded all suggest something deliberate. Investigators will determine the facts, but to many observers, it carried the signs of a targeted act. Here's why this moment carries weight beyond the immediate tragedy. Publicly, Key Glock had been relatively restrained about the CMG conflict, especially compared to how outspoken Dolph had been. He didn't center interviews around the feud. He seemed focused on healing and building his music career. But in the streets, there's no separation between Key Glock the artist and Glock the representative of Paper Route Empire. To whoever pulled the trigger, he may not have just been a rapper, he was PRE. And PRE had been locked in tension with the CMG side of Memphis for years. There were also past run-ins. Before Dolph's death, Glock had exchanged words online with CMG affiliate Lil Migo. What started as social media shots was widely rumored to be turning into something more serious. Glock also had friction with Black Youngsta, who previously turned himself in for questioning in connection with the 2017 Charlotte shooting involving Dolph's SUV.